Hi, and welcome back to the Kung Fu Book Review. Today, episode 5, we are going to be covering this book, which is Chinese Internal Boxing, the Techniques of Xingyi and Bagua, by Robert Winston Smith and Alan Pittman. So, who are these guys? So they're really big names, sort of older names in the internal martial arts business. Robert Winston Smith was one of the first guys, who's sort of one of those first generation of Western guys to go over and train with people in Asia, right? And specifically, he was a military boxer, and then he was stationed over in Taiwan, and then trained with some really good guys, but in particular, let me find the photo of him. In particular, this big guy, Wang Shujin, who, if you've seen our previous Kung Fu book review, he was one of B.K. Francis's teachers as well. So really, really big guy. Did Bagua, Xingyi, a lot of internal stuff, and really, really famous for his iron shirt Kung Fu, right? So, and just being an absolute tank, basically. If you listen to the stories about him and the various people that tried to fight him. So there's a great picture here, which is, you can also find this on a video, which I recommend you look up online, which is Smith, who, as you can see, is a fairly big dude, right? Strong dude, laying in with a full body weight, cross into Wang Shujin, and he's just sitting there being like, no probs, mate. And in the video, he does this for a minute or so, and he's just fine, right? Which is pretty astounding, right? So in itself, to be a guy who was a military boxer and then being able to hit somebody as much as you want and being like, doesn't do anything, mate. Bit surprising. So understandably, Winston Smith, was like, okay, I'm going to do this, right? So, which is, I think a few of us have had experiences like this, where like I did karate for a number of years. And then I met sort of a Wing Chun guy who just blew me out of the water with hand speed, movement quality, etc. So I was like, oh, I've got to do some of this stuff, right? So it's a common experience when you're doing martial arts and you suddenly meet somebody from, who shows some sort of internal skills, and you're like, that is the real deal. So Alan Pittman was one of Winston Smith's students, and but also has trained all over the place. Has written a number of books, I think his focus is mainly on Bagua, but has done Xingyi as well, and also has trained with Wang Shujin in the Taiwan Xingyi and Bagua school, because they all kind of teach it together there. So so this book is about both of those arts. So that's a lot of stuff to get in, right, into a sort of a relatively short book. It's 170 pages. So and also it's an older book, right? So both of these guys, Pittman's, like an older guy now, right? So, so this book was written in 1989. So it does fall into some of the traps of these older generation of books. Lots and lots of still photographs, right, of various poses. But in its defense, it does also have a lot of really good things going for it. So, which is, I think, the earlier sections, which cover the basics, the fundamentals, and the principles, and as well as translations of some of the key principles. So, like I think it's like the 9-word song, the 6 coordinations, 5 positions, etc. So the key underlying principles are explained and covered in relatively, quite quickly, but some of that information is really, really important. Yeah, so overall, I would say this is a sort of it's like a half thumbs up. Like, if you are studying Xingyi or Bagua, I think it's a useful book. It's also quite good that you kind of get a look at the other one and you can sort of see how they're similar and some of the slight differences between the theories of them. And some of the, sort of the fundamental theory information in here is good. And the pictures are not awful. They're not in the worst category. But like, for example, if you were trying to learn the animal forms from, Xingyi from this would be, it's impossible, right, from this book, right? Because it doesn't show all of the movements, right, which is probably deliberate, like a lot of these books were back then. And it's hard to follow from a series of still photographs anyway, especially when the information about each picture is often on the next page. So sort of some hits, some misses would be my overall impression of this book, but it is an older book, right? So it came out a long time ago. So in its day, like when I first picked it up, I thought it was excellent, right? So, but nowadays it has aged a little bit, I would say. So let's go through and look at each bit in detail. Here is the contents page. Ooh, you can see everything that's in there, right? So little bit of preface, acknowledgements, etc. I'd also say, so because it's an older book, so I have a bit of a thing for how Chinese is shown and demonstrated. So they use the older Wei-Jiao system of the translations, which is sort of maybe how an English ear hears some Mandarin, but it's also got quite a lot of Cantonese influence. So because some of the pronunciations are a little bit off for a native Mandarin speaker. So, and it's not really used anymore. So not great there, but it's, that's what was mainly around back when the authors were writing. So nowadays we all basically use Pinyin, excepting a few, things around old versus new characters, if it's a Taiwanese based art, for example. But yeah, basically, so that can be a bit jarring as well. But it's I wouldn't hold it against them because that's what people were using to transliterate Chinese back then. So, okay, so so starts off a little bit of preface and acknowledgements, very short there. Cracks straight on with Xingyi to start with, and so you get a little sort of 7 pages or so of history. Again, very short, and especially for Xingyi history, that is very, very short because the lineage is very complicated. Which we will get to later in another video. Then my favourite bit is actually these bits, is that you get another couple of pages on the theories behind the art, what it is, how to train, and then another short section on basic training, which I think for Xingyi is quite good because it's got translations and explanation of some of the important short, what they would call songs or short phrases. So the 5 positions, 6 coordinations, the 9 words and other pointers, right? Which are sort of the main group that have passed down that particular Taiwanese lineage, because depending on what style of Xingyi you train, there's different ones, right? So you might have like the 8-word song, for example, which was quite important in my training when I was training on the mainland. But then isn't so heavily emphasized with if you were doing with one of my other teachers doing Sun style Xingyi, for example, right, which had its own sort of set of things to focus on. Then the next section where he spends a good deal of time is on the 5 elements, right? So how to start, splitting, crushing, drilling, pounding, crossing. So you cover all the 5 things, and I think it's right in a book on Xingyi to spend most of your time there, because that's where you should spend, especially at the start, most of your training time. Talks a little bit, mentions the fact that there's a linking form, but doesn't go into details about it, and then does the 12 animal style. So rather than, also some of the language is a little bit antiquated now, so because I would, they call them forms nowadays really, but I quite like styles actually, so I think it's quite a nice way of describing it. So focuses on each one in turn, and some of them, I mean honestly, so trying to learn the monkey, right, which includes lots of direction changes from something like this. This is one of my other pet hates in old martial arts books. So if you've ever seen old karate books and stuff as well, these are all over the place, right? Because trying to work out the relative position and angles in which direction you're going to go in from a series of still photographs also requires you to interpolate something like this, which is painful and not really very helpful, right? So yeah, nowadays we have videos, right? So, and I would even recommend videos that they would, if you're trying to really learn directions of a form, really not from one angle is good. You should probably see it top down as well. And then it's just like, oh yeah, I get it, north, south, east, west, etc. But not many people do that, right? So and then that kind of covers the Xingyi bit. And then really, because I'm not mainly a Bagua practitioner, wearing a Bagua shirt. So I've done a little bit, right? So I did a little bit of Gore style, I think. Yeah, or Go style. Anyway, the one that's more like a wrestling based style. Quite enjoyed it. Circle walking is fun, definitely. Pretty cool. But yeah, so, and then here it's got again, short bit on the philosophy and practice, a little bit of the history, again, very potted. Then my favourite bits here is again what he calls essential Bagua or Pakwa in this, because it's the old way Giles, right? Which is what he calls substance and function, the concepts needed for practice. So I always think books are good when they focus on the concepts and the ideas. Notes, technical teaching notes, and a little bit about the student-teacher relationship. And then again, the basics, right? So how I really also like this internally bound, externally stretched, because even actually that's a key feature of Xingyi as well. So, and it sort of separates it from Tai Chi. So, because in Tai Chi, you sometimes achieve that status, but it's very short, right? And it's in that kind of like pulsing. You have a period where you do get a little bit of that, but in Xingyi and Bagua, you really do remain in that state, internally bound, externally stretched, right? Where things are kind of held with because of the twisting nature of the art, but you're also holding a posture. You develop, you're sort of pulling apart and stretching what the Chinese would call the meridians, right? So all the soft tissues inside the body to develop the skill. It's good. And then the last bit is just basically about circle walking and all of the palm changes, right? With an emphasis placed on the single and double before the other ones, right? And that's all the Bagua that it covers, which is, I think, great, right? So rather than going into all of the other, two-person training and weapons and other bits and bobs, just focusing on the fundamentals, right? So overall, and then, yeah, it does conclude and have an index as well. So overall, I think, reasonably good. And for its age, for when it was written, 2 thumbs up, right? Nowadays, I think we could do a little bit better, right? They didn't really have videos and, YouTube back then. So, but yeah, really solid book. So, if you're doing Xingyi and Bagua, I recommend adding it in there, and also just to have a little think about some of the history and some of the authors that have been involved in, in the foundation of these arts in the West. So yeah, good, solid book from 2 guys that are sort of fundamental in the history of internal martial arts in the West. But is an older book and has dated a bit, would be my summary. Good. Let me know if you want me to cover any of these other guys' books. So I know that Pittman has written, I've actually got a couple of other of his books. So he's written some other books on internal martial arts. I think he's also written some stuff on yoga and other things as well. So not my area of expertise, but because he's quite into some of the internal healthy body movement as his sort of area now, rather than the sort of the fighting stuff. So let me know if you want to review any of his other books. I have got plans to review more Xingyi books, so I've got them on the way. Let me know other types of Xingyi books you might be interested in. And please do like, share, and subscribe. And I look forward to reading more Kung Fu books with all of you. Best of luck with your training, everyone. See you soon.